again, we are today going to be discussing and talking about the water cycle. Just as a review, then we're going to talk about groundwater, also known as the water underground. So let's start off with the water cycle being here. And your instructions were to draw the scenery that you have here on the blank spot of your water cycle notes, which you all should have done. And you didn't have to add color to it. You could have just drawn the scenery. But if you added color to it, that's perfectly fine as well. Then you needed to draw and label these things here. So, who would like to come up and do one of these first on the board, Christiana? You pick one, and then you can drag these and label it, okay? No, you need to draw it first, or maybe you don't have to draw it, yeah.
Can you just drag it?
Is the power source the water? The power source of the water cycle? No, not quite. You might want to try another one. Take that out of there. Help her up, Kimo. Oh, sorry. The sun is the power source or the energy source for the water cycle. It is what fuels the cycle of water through our earth. Okay? Next, Maya. Precipitation is what? Rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Any of those are precipitation. Another one. Make sure when you label here precipitation, also put rain, snow, sleet, or hail so that you know it's not just rain that precipitates from the clouds. Josh. Let me give you guys some other colors too. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Let me give you some more colors. That's red, but you can choose whatever color you want over here.
Okay.
What are you saying?
I think red.
For it, because that's not even true depiction. But go ahead, you're fine. I just like it because you're fine. Go ahead, do what you're doing.
All right.
Evaporation. So evaporation is what?
Water.
Water turning into a
Yeah.
gas. Okay, good. Another one? Somebody else? Come on, Danny. Condensation. He pointed to a cloud. What does that mean? It's the water changing from a gas to a liquid. The clouds then get so heavy and then they cry, they sweat, whatever. So they let down rain, sleet, snow, or hail, which is precipitation. Very good. Another one. Come on, Kevin.
I don't even know how to draw it now.
This is a little mountain.
That's what I'll do.
Runoff. What is runoff?
Water rain on somewhere and it falls down to the body of water.
Of water, rain, water, or anywhere from the land falls down back into the body of water. Transpiration. From your reading, what is transpiration? From what you read the other day. You were to fill that in. What do we do when we get overheated? We sweat, so we let off. When we sweat, we let off water. We perspire. That's perspiration. So what do you think transpiration is? What do you think transpires when plants do what? Let off water. It's like a plant sweating. We perspire, plants transpire. They transpiration. So therefore, because they take in water how? Through the ground. They get it. That's in photosynthesis. They get it from the ground and then they let off water. All of this is the water cycle. It gets into the water through runoff, into the bodies of water through runoff, into the bodies of water through precipitation. It comes out of the bodies of water or out of the land area back into the air from where? How does it get back up into the air? Evaporation and transpiration. It holds up in the air with what? Condensation, then it gets back down through precipitation. Now, this is the water cycle. The water cycle is also known as what? Hydrologic cycle. What's hydro? Water. Logic? Study of the water cycle. Cycle means a circle, so it goes all the way back around. Now, here's the other thing that we're going to start talking about today. It's infiltration. Now, although the water gets into these bodies of water, it doesn't just sit there. Although it gets into the land, it doesn't just sit there either, because every water that hits the land doesn't just roll off into a body of water. What if it's the desert? Right? So what it does is it breaks into the ground of the water. And this is breaking into the ground. We talked about before, if someone, well, I don't know if we talked about it before, but in watching your cartoons or your spy movies, if someone breaks into something, they're what? They're infiltrating. So the water breaking into the ground is infiltration. Any questions about this? Yes.
So, like, is it considered infiltration too whenever water just goes into your grass, like whenever it rains?
Yep, it's infiltrating into the ground. And then what happens, and we'll show it in another picture, and then it percolates. What's percolate mean?
So,
And last year, they had a stupid song called It's Time for the Percolator. What did you do when that song came on? What was he telling you to do? He was telling you to move. So what does percolate mean? Percolate mean? It means move. So once the water breaks in through infiltration, then it moves down, which is percolation, which is what we're going to be talking about today. But before we do that, let's just quickly review those notes that you have on your paper there. And I'm going to quickly go through them, so I'm not going to be stopping quickly. I'm going to be asking you questions because you do have the notes. And again, the water cycle is also known as the hydrologic cycle. Alrighty. And then we have this. Remember, it's a continuous cycle. It's a water cycle. And we looked at all of these things: runoff, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and even infiltration playing a part. All right. What is the energy that fuels the water cycle? The sun. Make sure you have that. We talked about what transpiration was: condensation, evaporation, precipitation, and even runoff. What's infiltration? Water breaks into or goes into the ground. What's percolation? When it moves through the ground. All right. Water vapor or gas that cools, gathering in the clouds and changing to a liquid is good. Water changing from a liquid to a vapor or a gas is good. And you've all seen this driving down maybe 73 and you look at that bodies of water. Probably at a time like this you'll see it as well. Or later on today. Liquids falling from the sky would be good. Even though liquid falls onto the ground, it can get into a body of water, which is what the previous picture showed us, but it also can become runoff, meaning it hits mountains or land, and then it flows back into bodies of water, which is what we looked at as well. Reservoirs are places where water is stored. To reserve is reservoir. That's a French word, to reserve. All right, stages of a river. These are described by their features, not by their age. And I'm going to give you some clues on how to remember these. So on the side of that, if you want to write down these little clues to help you remember them, that would be fine. When you're youthful, meaning think of you, when you're youthful, how do you move? I'm talking like 1 and 2. You're busy, you're moving, but then you're also always on the ground because why? You can't walk very well, so you're always falling. So what do you think a youthful river has? Lots of falls, just like when you were younger. It's deeper, there's more falls, it's not very wide, and it flows very quickly. When you were youthful, you moved very fast. You had a lot of falls because you were just learning to walk, and you were very narrow-minded. That's not a bad thing at your age because you don't know any better. It was, I want my candy, I want my toy, I want my baba, I want to do things my way. Agreed? That's how you can remember Youthful River. If you want to jot down those things, that's going to help you. As you mature, or as someone matures, what happens? Do you fall often? No, there's not a lot of falls. What else? Are you narrow-minded? No, your vision becomes a little wider, and you also probably get a little wider, right? Either in muscles or hippiness. So it's wider. It's not that deep, so it doesn't have a lot of falls. Your vision gets wider, you don't have a lot of falls. Okay? Question. As you get old, think about your grandparents. Your grandparents, they possibly do what? They move a little bit slower. What else? Think about every time you go to your grandparents' house, what are they always trying to do? Come here, honey, let me. Here, sweetie, go and get your candy bar. What are they always doing? They're spoiling you by doing what? They're giving you stuff. At the older ages, what also do they prepare when it's time to leave this world? A will. What does a will do? It gives away things, and that's what an old river does as well. An old river is going to deposit things. Deposits rocks and soils along the way. And it's not steep. So this doesn't have a lot of falls. It has some, but not a lot. But it's giving away things. So as it's flowing, it's going to be putting rocks and soil onto the land, just like an elderly person deposits things into your life, whether it's knowledge or whether it's monetary things. Any questions? Okay. A rejuvenated river, what does rejuvenated mean? But what does rejuvenated mean? To be rejuvenated means you feel what?
Better.
You feel better, so that means you're on top of the world, right? Like, oh, I'm so rejuvenated. I'm on top of things. So where do you think this is at? On top of the world. What part of the world is on top of the world? Where would you say those are? On mountains. So these are found where land is raised in mountainous areas. All right. During runoff and the flow of water, you can have erosion. And what's erosion? It's wearing down. It's the pulling away of things. We looked at that. It's by wind, ice, or gravity will pull away stuff from the earth and deposit it back into the water. Erosion is influenced by a couple of things. One thing it's influenced by is gradient. Gradient is the change in elevation. Sometimes you can have it kind of flow, and then it may start to flow a lot faster. So that's going to pull. And think about when you're, if you're in your driveway and you have the water hose and you're watering your grass. If you make the water hose go very, very, very fast and a lot of water coming out of it, then it's going to be able to push grass out the way, even dirt out the way. You've done that before, correct? Think about when you're on the water slide as well. The steeper it is and the more water it is, the faster you're going to go down that slide, right? Another thing that influences erosion is discharge. Discharge is the amount. So gradient is the steepness of it. Discharge is the amount. Again, if the water slide is very steep, you are what's pulling away. So if you're going to go faster, if there's a lot of water, it's going to push you down that water slide a lot faster. How many of you like water slides? Another thing is the materials carried by the water, the load. How much stuff is there? If there's a lot of stuff in the water, those materials are going to pull away at the earth as well. It's going to help erode the earth. Deposition. What word do you see in deposition? Deposit. So what do you think that means? It puts things there. Yep. This is a process where materials and sediments are put back. They're laid down or put places. There are 4 types of stream deposits. One is a placer deposit, things like gold. The other one are minerals. Those things are deposited back into the earth. Got it? A delta is formed in muddy water. This is the delta here. Slide down that way like a triangle because this is the delta sign. And if you look at it, delta sign is a triangle. This is a triangle, inverted triangle. And a delta is formed where there's muddy water. So the water flows out. Before it gets to the land, it's going to be very muddy because it's a lot of water and land there. When you mix water and land, you get mud. The alluvian fan, when you're hot, you want to fan yourself, and that's formed in dry lands. In dry lands, it's very hot. Got it? Nate, you have something that you want to contribute to the class? I suggest you close your mouth. Floodplains. These are where sediments from river overflow. The floodplain areas, if you have a body of water in a location, then if it starts to get rainy and rainy, lots and lots of rain like we've had yesterday, then that area is going to be, it is a floodplain. It's a plain land where floods could possibly happen because you are at a body of water. And when we get rain, what happens to that body of water? The level rises. All right, sediment deposition and its effects on land. One way is there's rich diversity of crops. Why is there rich diversity of crops? Because the soil is going to be fertilized or watered constantly, or it's going to have things placed into it, so your crops are going to be able to grow. You're going to have animal life, because if there is a floodplain and the waters are up, then those animals, they don't know. They're not like, oh, this is not where we're supposed to be. They're thinking, oh, new landscape for us. Let's go right on into this backyard. They have no idea that that is not their territory. And it becomes duck season, not wabbit season. All right. However, those are the good things. The bad things is there's damaged farmland and there's flooded homes, which we've seen these in the past couple months. Even in Jersey and New York City, where those are normally the areas where were affected, even though there weren't floodplains, but of course the floodplains were affected. Do you see how this can be good and it can be bad? Any questions? Okay. Now your deposition is going to occur along the inside of the river bed. It's where the water flows slowly. So think about when you're depositing money to a bank, you have to go inside the bank. And how are you depositing money? You're putting money in or taking it out? You're putting money into the bank. So deposit happens on the inside, putting in. Erosion happens along the outside of the river bank. Erode means to take away. If you're taking money, if you're eroding or you're taking from the bank, meaning you're taking in or you're taking out. You're taking out money from the bank, so that happens on the outside where it erodes away. Deposition puts to the earth, erosion takes away from the earth and adds it to the water. All right, any questions about your water cycle notes? Okay, very good then. Let's now move on to your groundwater vocabulary. You're going to need a separate sheet of paper. Title it Groundwater Vocabulary. And as we go through, you're going to be writing down the definitions and coming up using the definition or using the word in some cases to help come up with the definition. Because you could look at the word and decide what the word is and maybe come up with a definition by just looking at the word. So the first word is groundwater. So you write down groundwater. And these are your notes, so you can do them in separate colors and highlight them however you would like. What do you think groundwater is? Water in the ground or water underground. Groundwater is also known as underground water, and it is water located within the rocks below the earth. So water underground. Do not write this word for word. Put your own definition, because when you get a quiz or if you notice this somewhere on an assessment, it's not going to be word for word. You should be able to come up with your own definition for that. So again, groundwater is water located underground. Infiltration is your next word. Infiltration. If you look and see, infiltration is located here. What is infiltration? Water seeping into the ground or water breaking into the ground. All of that's fine. Any questions so far? Good. What is this a picture of? Transpiration, not evaporation, transpiration. What is transpiration? Water coming off of plants. Do not write those words because those are lengthy. Put your own definition. I just uncovered it so that you can see the word transpiration and spell it correctly. Water escaping from plants. Water coming off of plants. And it gets back into our atmosphere to participate in the water cycle. Questions? Can I move? All right, here we have a couple of things. We have the zone of aeration. Write that down, the zone of aeration.
Will you draw this little picture too?
No, just write, these are just your vocabulary. What word do you hear in aeration? Put that down. Air. Is air wet or dry? It's dry, so this location is really going to be a dry area. It's the area below ground, but it's above the water table. It's where your infiltration and percolation take place, and it's dry. next word is water table. What you see is here. What is a water table? If you look at this picture, first of all, what is a table? So a table is located at the bottom or on top? The top, okay. It's at the bottom. The table top. Table is located at top. What does the water table do here? Where is the water table located? Look at the picture. Between zone of aeration and the zone of saturation. So the water table separates what?
Air and water.
Separates the zone of aeration and zone of saturation. What is it above, or what is it the top of? Groundwater. So the water table is above the top area of groundwater, separating zone of aeration and zone of saturation, or it's the boundary between. It's the top surface of groundwater, separating the zone of aeration and the zone of saturation. Can the water table change? Give me an example of when the water table may change. When there's a drought, it could do what? It would lower. And what else can it change? When there's a flood or lots of rain, it could go up. So the water table could change, so can the amount, the zones of aeration and the zones of saturation.
Oh, you like digging a well through that?
Oh, we're going to be talking about that.
Wouldn't it go up a little bit because of the math, then we go back down?
Yeah, because you're taking water from it. Yep. The next word is your zone of aeration. I'm sorry, zone of saturation, I apologize. Zone of saturation. What does saturate mean? To saturate something means what? Soak it. So what do you think the zone of aeration is? Zone of saturation is, I'm sorry. It's where the soil is completely wet and what's located there? What type of water? Groundwater. So zone of saturation is where your groundwater is located, and it's wet. The wet area where groundwater is located. Any questions? Can I move? Okay. All around North Carolina, we have these things called aquifers. Put that down. Aquifer. A-Q-U-I-F-E-R. Aqua. Water. So what do you think an aquifer is? What is it? It's okay. It's an area where water is stored. Yep, that's true. Here's my tiny circle here. I don't know where I put it on here. Here it is. Where is it behind? Oh, that's why I see. It's a body of rock or sediment where groundwater is stored. Like Austin said, it's where water is stored, like a reservoir. But it's underground, and it allows the flow of groundwater. So it lets groundwater flow. You see here, aquifer. And then you see this area where your water wells are able to dig in and dig in. But of course, you have to get a permit to be able to dig a well because they don't want you pulling water from a location that doesn't have a lot of water because then your well's going to dry up. They don't want you pulling from a location that has lots of wells already, like in this area here, because we have lots of them that help us supply our water here coming from different areas. So if you put another well in an area that's lots of wells, then what's going to happen? It's also going to dry up or it's going to take too much water from that aquifer. The next one you have is aquitard. Aqua means? Water. Tard means what? slow down, or even stop. So what is aquitard? Actually, tard means stop. It stops. It doesn't allow the water to flow. So it's earth layer that doesn't permit the water to flow. Guys, grow up. Grow up. Because the word that you're thinking of, just so you can get out of your head, is retard. And retard actually means to slow down. To retard something means slow down. It's not a noun. So just grow up. So it's an earth layer that do not permit the flow of water. So an area where water can't flow would be considered an aquifer. An area where water can flow would be considered a aquifer. Porosity is your next word. It's P-O-R-O-S-I-T-Y. Porosity comes from the word pores. What does that mean? Opening. Holes, opening areas. So what is the porosity? It's the amount of space that's open. The amount of open space. What the heck is mine? It's the percentage of open space between rocks and rock spaces. Is picture A more porous or less porous than picture B? This is picture A. This is picture B. Is picture A more porous or less porous? The red lines represent the spaces in between the rocks that allows water to flow. The red lines represent the amount of space available for water to flow. Is A more porous or less porous? Less porous, meaning it has a lower percentage. Where have you heard the word porous before? SpongeBob. It says, colorful yellow and porous is he. What does that mean? He has lots of holes, lots of space to allow water to go through. All right. Your next word that you have there is, actually, I need to go back here. It's permeability. And permeability is the ability to let water pass. So to be permeable means that you are...
Miss Wiggins, would you have a moment? Could you place an Austin Higgins to the front office for a second?
Yes.
Thank you.
To be permeable, which means what? You let what? Not just things. You let water pass. Non-permeable means you don't let water pass. Permeability, yes. Got it? Everyone good? All right. Next is recharge zone. Recharge zone. What is a recharge zone? What are we recharging? Water. So what zone, what is it, what do you think a recharge zone is?
Recharging water.
Where you what? Get more water, where more water is gotten, where you put more water. Guys, cut it out.
No, I was asking him if he had the definition for aquifer.
Yeah, because you were spending a lot of time laughing at the word.
I just didn't know.
This is the ground surface where downward water becomes part of your aquifer. Remember, aquifer is where the water is stored, where it's held, and if that gets low, then it gets it from the recharge zone. The recharge zone is the area that's going to replenish that water. When you're finished writing that, write down this question. What process in the hydrologic cycle occurs in the recharge zone? If you look at that picture, you see where the recharge zone is. process of the hydrologic cycle occurs at the recharge zone? Not precipitation, infiltration. That's where the water is now going to become part of an aquifer. It has to break through the ground. It is infiltration. Questions? You have a sheet that looks like this. You're going to put that at the back of your vocabulary. You'll have a moment to glue it, but don't glue it now. This is set up like a study guide because each area is numbered. The numbered areas represents parts of your vocabulary that we just discussed, which includes also part of the water cycle, You'll notice on the sides you have the numbers 1 through 10. That's where you're to put your answers. So when you are studying, you can look at the picture, cover up your answers with a sheet of paper. What's 1? You'll say, okay, 1 is, scroll your paper down so you can check your answers and see if you're right or wrong. Down to number 2, down to number 3. Do you see how this is set up like a little study guide sheet? Okay, then number 1 would be condensation. Write that down. And you're putting it on here, on your paper that looks like this picture. And on the side, you have 1 through 10 numbered there. Number 2 represents precipitation. Number 3, Lucas. Not runoff. Infiltration. It's the breaking in. Number 4, Kayla. Transpiration. Very good. Number 5, Isaiah. Evaporation. Excellent. Number 6, Mark. Runoff. Good. Number 7, Sarah. The movement of water underground. Percolation. Very good. Number 7 represents the movement, which is why you see the wavy lines. Number 8, Connor.
The zone of aeration.
Zone of aeration. Very good. Number 9, Nick.
Water table.
Water table. Excellent. And number 10, everyone.
Saturation.
Zone of saturation. Any questions about this? Okay. You want to have this? You're going to glue this. Don't glue it yet. Just put it in a space on your paper because underneath where this will be located on your paper, put cave formation. How many of you ever took a cruise to another island when you were able to visit some caves? Or have you been somewhere where you were able to go underground and visit some caves? We're going to talk about how caves are formed. This is what you're seeing here is a picture of an underground cave. Now, for your caves, you have things called stalactites and stalagmites. Tights hang high, mites sit low. Stalactites, yes. You're going to put these with your vocabulary in the space that you have available for it, the picture that we just did. Underneath that picture, you're going to write cave formation, and then you're going to write stalactites. These are your icicle-shaped features on the cave ceiling. Tight, hang, tight. Stalagmites are your cone-shaped features on the floor. Mites you find on the floor. How are caves formed? Erosion. And next to your cave formation, it's caused by chemical erosion, when water falls through the atmosphere. And then you have the top of the ground, This all beneath has been eroded, and you still have the bottom of the ground, but now you have this opening underground. What do you think could possibly happen at the top layer of the ground? Collapse, which is called a manhole. Manhole, when the whole ground just collapsed. It's called a manhole because a whole man can fall through there. Any questions? Okay. We're going to take a little short video about groundwater.
Old Faithful was supposed to be over here someplace, but I can't seem to find it. Did you find Old Faithful? You know, the geyser. Dear Tim and Moby, I don't get what groundwater is. Can you explain it? From Joshua. Explain is what we're here for, right, Moby? Called
Sorry.
You know, the geyser. Dear Tim and Moby, I don't get what groundwater is. Can you explain it? From Joshua. Explain is what we're here for, right, Moby? Okay, when water soaks into the earth, it becomes part of a system called groundwater. Soil is made of very tiny pieces of rock and organic debris. Weathered rock lies below the soil layer. Around the particles of soil and weathered rock are tiny spaces called pores, like the ones in a sponge. The soil is said to be permeable because water can seep through it and move through the groundwater system. Well, rocks may look totally solid, but some rocks, like sandstone, are also permeable with tiny pores all over. Groundwater moves through Earth's crust until it reaches a layer of impermeable rock. Materials like clay have really tiny pores, so water can't move through it easily, if at all. This makes it impermeable. When water hits the impermeable layer, it starts to well up and fill the pores of the permeable rock above. This area is known as the zone of saturation, and the top of that zone is called the water table. The surface level of a river or creek will show you the water table for a particular area. Wells go deep into the zone of saturation, so a pump can bring groundwater up to the surface. Water that can be pumped up to the surface often comes from a pooled area of rock called an aquifer. When the water table gets high enough to meet the Earth's surface, water flows out and makes a cold freshwater spring. Sometimes groundwater is heated by hot rocks below Earth's surface and forms a hot spring. The park that we're in right now has both hot springs and geysers. A geyser is a hot spring that erupts every now and then, shooting hot water into the air. I'd like to show you a geyser because they're really cool, but I can't seem to find the one we're looking for. Yeah, close call.
All right, so we've discussed groundwater and water underground. What it is that you're going to be doing right now in your textbook. You have a paper that says water underground, and it says chapter 2, section 1, Q&A. On your separate sheet of paper, you're going to have another, I'm sorry, on the back of that paper, I apologize. On the back of the paper that says Water Underground, Chapter 2, Section 3, this starts on page 52. I know, this is where you're going to put answers. just going to number and put the answers. Do not write it in complete sentences. So this is like set up like a study guide. It goes from page 52 to 57. And as you go through, you'll be able to work with a partner, but as you go through, and of course if you're listening to this online, you have to work on your own. But page 52 to 57, if you look on the front, you have 31 questions. You're just putting your answer on the back. Do not write your answers on the front because then you don't have a study guide. You just have a sheet that has all the answers, and that's not helpful. So put number 1 on the back, put your answer. Number 2 on the back, and put your answer all the way to number 31. Don't number them going all the way down because some of them may say explain or describe. So you want to make sure you leave spaces for that. Any questions about what it is that you are doing? Okay, then go ahead and get to work, and this concludes the lesson for this.